Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 episode number 226 based on novel. So let's start. The resource most suitable for the Infinite Great Snake Clan is the source world origin. The Infinite Snake ancestor itself has long been undying and undying. For the needs of the clan, it also cannot agree. Hand over all the source worlds in our territory to you. You're purely delusional. The Infinite Snake ancestor's eyes were cold. This condition has no room for negotiation. All source world creatures are our kin. Our cultivator camp has strived for generations and will definitely take them all back. We cannot tolerate the source world creatures serving as food for you forever. Yuan said coldly. The Infinite Snake ancestor sneered, "Want all the source worlds? Then there'll be a full-scale war. By then, numerous source worlds in your cultivator territory will also be swept into the war." The numerous ancestors and 8 lords radiated murderous intent. Full-scale war? Our lords don't care. Yuan said indifferently, "The lords are undying and undying, let's see how many of your ancestors will fall in battle." Haha, our innate primordial camp does indeed need enough blood and fire. The silent extinction ancestor spoke, "Only blood and fire can make the life core grow and birth more undying and undying. Full-scale war, who would be afraid?" The infinite ancestor also sneered. The ancestors who reach the level of undying and undying, don't care. Those ancestors very close to undying and undying, like the silent extinction ancestor, eagerly anticipate advancing further. A sufficiently brutal war is beneficial to their evolution. As for the fate of the lower ranks, they care for the continuation of the clan, and during this process, the elimination through wars doesn't concern them. The innate primordial camp has been the first major camp in the endless primordial space for too long. Luo Feng spoke, "It's time for the first major camp to change." Possessing the power to control the destruction world, Luo Feng can conduct periodic cleanups, gaining favor from the abyss of destruction. Luo Feng is prepared for a great massacre. To command all source worlds, if negotiation fails, then war is the only option. One side has 8 undying and undying lords. The other has 5 undying and undying ancestors and over 100 ancestors of varying strengths. Should full-scale war erupt, the casualties are destined to be severe. An ancestor like the silent extinction ancestor, nearing a breakthrough, instead yearns for this brutal war. Is all you want just the source worlds? The giant god emperor suddenly spoke, causing the infinite snake ancestor and silent extinction ancestor to glare at it angrily. Yes. Yuan nodded. "You should also know, resources for life core evolution aren't important to us cultivator lords. We only care for the source worlds, and apart from the source worlds, there's countless other resources in the vast territory, all of which can belong to you. But of course, we will continue to fairly compete for the mysterious land. The mysterious land, where all parties have always assumed fair competition. Refining and mastery depend entirely on individual ability. You promise never to invade our innate primordial camp's territory again for endless ages." The giant god emperor continued. "We 8 lords will promise all ancestors never to expand. Yuan stated. The giant god emperor understood. It turned to its companions and said, 8 cultivator lords collectively promise never to expand again. Only need to give them all source worlds. I think source worlds aren't that important to us. Source worlds are very important to us." The infinite snake ancestor stared at the giant god emperor. "Our giant god race doesn't care." The giant god emperor looked at it. "Your infinite great snake clan certainly cares a lot, but, for the long ages, the strength of other ancestors has hardly improved. Infinite snake ancestor, I think you rely too heavily on the source worlds. Thoroughly abandoning the source worlds is also a tempering for your infinite great snake clan. Your giant god race doesn't need them, can abandon them." The infinite snake ancestor shook its head, "But this condition, our infinite great snake clan can never agree to. The infinite great snake clan, the proportion of world-level beings becoming ancestors, far exceeds other clans because of absorbing the source world origin. Once abandoned, the subsequent emergence of ancestors for the infinite Great Snake clan will quickly become extremely difficult. Many clans do not particularly need the source worlds. The giant god emperor looked behind. I believe among the 86 ancestors here, many ancestors don't care about the source world origin. Many ancestors felt somewhat tempted. Previously, they thought the cultivator camp was occupying the southern river territory and was still unsatisfied, still wanting to expand. For their territory necessary for survival and reproduction, these ancestors were united against the cultivator camp at any cost. But now, the 8 lords promise never to expand. This isn't an individual lord's promise, nor a private promise. But 8 lords, a public promise to all ancestors. Considering that the cultivator lords also lack life cores, the promise's credibility is quite high. Never expand? Then why fight? As for the source worlds, for their clan's reproduction and growth, it's merely a resource enhancing what's already favorable. Missing the source world doesn't make much difference. What the giant god emperor said also makes sense. The initial ancestor suddenly spoke, having been silent. Your infinite Great Snake clan has always relied on the source world origin. Perhaps breaking off from the source world origin is another tempering for life core evolution. The infinite snake ancestor realized the internal division. Even among the 9 emperors. The giant god emperor, primordial beast ancestor, and black tide ancestor stood together. Initial ancestor and mother of spacetime leaned slightly neutral. Friend infinite ancestor, since becoming undying and undying, alone without a clan, no longer cooperated as it once did. Are we facing the cultivator camp to retreat like this? The silent extinction ancestor spoke. We don't need source world origin, why fight to the death over source worlds? Yes, the cultivator camp never expands, why fight against them? The ancestors communicated with each other. The 9 emperors were divided into 3 factions, and other ancestors were similarly fragmented. The majority of ancestors joining the battle faced potential death. They were certainly unwilling to risk their lives for resources they did not need. The 8 lords watched this scene, observing what seemed to be some internal strife within the innate primordial camp. These ancestors were likely communicating, and while they couldn't hear the content, they could speculate. Are they arguing? Mo-Man observed. It is expected, replied Starlight. Suddenly. Newest update provided by novifire.net. The infinite ancestor, among the 9 emperors, spoke, 8 lords, regarding the demands you made, we need thorough internal discussion. We also need to consult ancestors not engaged in battle, so let's postpone the final negotiations for 1 era. After 1 era, our innate primordial camp will give you a definite answer. All right, then we will await your response, Yuan nodded. Indeed, to yield all source world within the camp, the innate primordial camp needs a unified stance. Let us go. Led by the mother of spacetime, a group of ancestors immediately crossed into the spacetime channel and departed. Inside the shimmering spacetime channel, the ancestors continuously advanced. Giant God Emperor, you are truly unwilling to join the battle, transmitted the infinite snake ancestor, facing the cultivator camp, we must unite. As long as the cultivator camp adheres to their promises, my giant god race will not participate. Not only us, but quite a few other ancestors are unwilling to fight, Giant God Emperor communicated. Nearly half of the ancestors do not need the source world origin, they are all unwilling to risk their lives. The infinite snake ancestor sighed inwardly. There is still 1 era before the final negotiations, transmitted Giant God Emperor, do your best to find a way. If you can't, after 1 era, my faction and many ancestors will accept the cultivator side's conditions. Although the infinite snake ancestor was strong, it could not force the faction supported by nearly half of the ancestors led by Giant God Emperor. This cultivator camp is truly despicable. They do not expand territories, only want the source world. The infinite snake ancestor felt quite uncomfortable. Never expanding indeed reduced a lot of hostility. Southern River Territory. The objective of this confrontation has been achieved. We have displayed our strength to the entire endless primordial space. Even within the innate primordial camp, 3 ancestors died before us, Yuan said, we can take this opportunity to negotiate with all forces. Relying on war to seize all source world is a bad strategy. After all, there are more than 20 undying and undying beings. Even if some source worlds are forcefully occupied, the undying and undying can still come back. Negotiating a resolution is the best way. The negotiations will be entrusted to you, Starlight, Yuan said. Brother Yuan, Brother Luo Feng, you two send avatars with me to visit the major powers, said Starlight. Luo Feng, Yuan both nodded. With a single thought, they could gather a weak avatar in the targeted forces territory, where the 3 avatars could directly go to see the ancestors of weaker forces. To see those weaker forces, Luo Feng, Yuan will send weak avatars, Starlight said, but to visit the Ice Peak camp and negotiate with them, our 8 main avatars must go. The difficulty of negotiation with Ice Peak camp is no less than that of the innate primordial camp, Yuan also frowned and said. In terms of strength, the Ice Peak camp is indeed weaker than the innate primordial camp. But the leaders of the Ice Peak camp are 12 undying and undying beings. These undying and undying beings do not fear war, so what if they lose? After all, undying and undying. To eternally command all source worlds while facing a group of undying and undying beings in endless primordial space is not easy, Starlight couldn't help but sigh. Even though he could traverse countless future timelines, he still understood it is impossible to resolve perfectly. Mogus, who has a mortal enmity with the cultivator camp, is simply unsolvable. Mogus, undying and undying, comes and goes alone, loves to devour countless soul of creatures. Mogus is destined to always oppose the cultivator camp. Everyone we can negotiate is one less, Yuan said. Through negotiation, we can have much fewer troubles in the future. Negotiations, to minimize opponents. The fewer opponents, the less pressure there will be in the future. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The main avatars of the 8 lords set off together, heading toward the direction of the Ice Peak camp's territory. At the same time, the weak avatars of Luo Feng, Yuan, and Starlight descended upon various weaker force territories to respectively visit ancestors and commence rounds of negotiation. The avatars of Starlight, Yuan, and Luo Feng cross layers of time and space to visit Carfu. Although there are many weaker forces, most of them are easy to negotiate with. Starlight said leisurely. Among the top 4 powers in the endless primordial space, they occupy 3. Luo Feng is undoubtedly the first. Such deterrence, how many ancestors who have not reached the undying and undying have the courage to oppose? Yuan nodded in agreement. The ones we need to handle cautiously are mainly those undying and undying existences. Among the weaker forces, there are only 5 undying and undying beings: Hermit, Mogus, Demon Ruins, Carfu, and Feather Emperor. The Hermit is elusive, and he hasn't occupied any territory. Mogus is our mortal enemy, hidden among countless life souls, also without any territory. For now, we should face Carfu, Demon Ruins, and Feather Emperor. Luo Feng also smiled and said, Feather Emperor still has concerns. He needs to consider the Feather Realm clan. The Feather Realm clan is not very eager for the source world origin, so it should be relatively easy to negotiate. The real focus is Carfu and Demon Ruins. They both travel alone, without any ties, and because of this, Starlight said, we need to be more careful. These untethered ones change faces at will. Here we are. Starlight, Yuan, and Luo Feng looked ahead. Within a dazzling cloud cluster lies Carfu's cave mansion, where he resides, and the surrounding 39 world groups naturally become his territory. No force will penetrate into these 39 world groups. The countless innate primordial lives proliferating within this territory are all dependent on Carfu. Although Carfu does not care for them, they remain extremely loyal, diligently serving, and daring not to defy him in the slightest. After all, they must have an ancestor's protection to survive peacefully in this territory. Ha ha ha, a hearty laughter echoed as Carfu stepped out of the cloud cluster, smiling at Luo Feng and his companions. Luo Feng, my friend, why have you suddenly come here? Starlight and Yuan have arrived as well. Carfu, I have something to ask for your help. Luo Feng smiled. Oh. Carfu was puzzled. Here's the situation, Luo Feng explained in detail, with Yuan and Starlight remaining silent, as Luo Feng was the closest to Carfu. After Luo Feng's detailed explanation, he said, "The creatures of the source world are of our cultivator lord's kin. We can do without other resources, but the source worlds must be reclaimed. Even if this era cannot fully reclaim them, future lords will continue to strive for this. I really envy you." Kafu sighed after hearing this. "You have companions and countless descendants." Kafu was born into loneliness. "As for the matter you asked me to help with, it's a small matter," Kafu said. "From now on, my world-level primordial lives are forbidden from consuming source worlds. Those who defy will die." Kafu's voice instantly echoed in the ears of thousands of world-level primordial lives under his command. The thousands of world-level primordial lives living within his territory heard Kafu's command and were each frightened into respectful compliance. None dared defy Kafu. Kafu protects them, preventing them from being bullied by other forces. Yet, once Kafu issues a command, no innate primordial life dares defy. Kafu's good relationship with Luo Feng makes him easy to talk with. Yet, looking across the endless primordial space, Kafu is famous for his stubbornness. "All right, Luo Feng, my friend, I've done what you needed," Kafu said with a smile. "Thank you." Luo Feng expressed gratitude. "I owe you one." "It's a small matter," Kafu said with a grin. "After the cultivator camp finishes this busy period, I do have a little request for your help." He knows that Luo Feng's exploration of the abyss of destruction must far surpass his own, and he hopes to gain some intelligence from Luo Feng. "Certainly." Luo Feng nodded in agreement. This text is hosted at november1fire.net. I have just one request: accompany me through the 34 layers of the abyss of destruction to broaden my horizons. Demon Ruins said to Luo Feng. Under his command, all world-level primordial lives are forbidden from consuming source worlds. Demon Ruins does not care at all. "All right, I agree." Luo Feng nodded. Demon Ruins always felt a connection with the abyss of destruction, yet born from birth till now, made little progress, nor gained the abyss of destruction's recognition. Luo Feng, as the controller of the lowest level of the abyss of destruction. Demon Ruins indeed has a request from Luo Feng. "It's possible, but your cultivator camp must promise to assist when my Feather Realm clan faces a crisis in the future." Feather Emperor spoke quite well. "We can promise you, when facing a crisis, all 8 lords will assist," Yuan said. Feather Emperor nodded in satisfaction. He himself has long been undying, but the overall power of Feather Realm clan is still too weak. After negotiating with the 3 undying existences, the other ancestors were easier to speak with. As long as they didn't want to die, they wouldn't remain obstinate in the presence of Luo Feng, Starlight, and Yuan. Within a day's time, all weaker forces were persuaded. Of course, those without territories, such as the Hermit and Mogus, did not count. Asterisk 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 asterisk. The avatars of the cultivators' 8 lords rushed directly to the core of the Ice Peak camp. "The weaker forces have been negotiated," Yuan said with a smile. "Thankfully, there was Luo Feng, otherwise Kafu and Demon Ruins wouldn't have agreed so readily." The other 7 lords also showed cheer. The first phase of negotiations was a great success. The union of weaker forces also occupied 2/10 of the territory, and from now on, all source worlds within this 2/10 territory belong to the cultivator camp. "The innate primordial camp and the Ice Peak camp are the most troublesome," Starlight said. Luo Feng also nodded. "One side has over 100 ancestors, each with their own agenda. The other side has 12 undying entities. Try to win them over," Yuan said. "I'll send avatars to have private talks with them first." Among the 12 undying entities of the Ice Peak camp, the top 5 in strength are Shoju, the Ice Peak ancestor, the Pu Cheng ancestor, the Wugu ancestor, and Xiao Sai Wei. When Yuan became a lord, the cultivator camp had only 1 lord, and he mainly advanced and retreated together with the Ice Peak camp. For a long time, the cultivator camp was a staunch ally of the Ice Peak camp. Only as the cultivator camp continued to grow stronger did the 2 sides gradually drift apart. But in terms of friendship, Yuan and the ancestors of the Ice Peak camp, many friendships are extraordinary. "Brother Yuan, we're counting on you," Starlight said. With a thought, Yuan divided many avatars to visit 9 ancestors, excluding the 3 emperors of Wind and Thunder Sea. The 3 emperors of Wind and Thunder Sea have a bad relationship with Yuan. Yuan knew visiting them would only humiliate himself, so he didn't bother to waste time. Yuan, I owe you the most for becoming undying and undying, said Xiao Saiwei boldly. I will definitely help you with this matter. Thank you. Xiao Saiwei, I will remember your friendship. If you ever need anything, you can always find me or the entire cultivator camp, Yuan said, quite moved, as Xiao Saiwei had helped him many times over the years. Xiao Saiwei never asked for anything in return and proactively offered assistance. If I ever run into trouble, I will certainly speak up, Xiao Saiwei said with a smile. In Xiao Saiwei's view, the 2 major forces within the Ice Peak camp, Ice Peak Ancestor and Shouju and Pu Cheng Ancestor, rather selfish. Yuan, on the other hand, is loyal. Loyalty is rare among the undying and undying. Xiao Saiwei is more willing to help Yuan. This is a resource list. If you can agree, all the resources on this list will be delivered immediately, Yuan said as he looked at the Pu Cheng ancestor in front of him. The 2 largest groups within the Ice Peak camp are the Ice Peak clan and the Pu Cheng clan. The Pu Cheng ancestor has long been undying and undying, and he cares most about the future of his clan. Besides these resources, the Pu Cheng ancestor smiled. I need your cultivator camp to agree for Lord Luofeng to help me explore a mysterious land once. Yuan hesitated slightly. Luofeng has already agreed, Yuan said. Then it's settled, Pu Cheng said with satisfaction. The cultivator camp doesn't have much demand for life core resources, but the Pu Cheng clan craves them. The large amount of resources on this list is enough in the Pu Cheng ancestors' eyes to offset the benefits of the source world. ********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************* avatars for the war. Among the 12 undying and undying entities of the Ice Peak camp, the 3 thieves of wind and thunder sea are not to be bothered with. I visited 9 of them privately. Yuan frowned. I've reached agreements with 4, but Ice Peak and Shoju have made demands. Shoju needs a destruction fruit. Yuan looked at Luo Feng. As long as we give the destruction fruit, Ice Peak and the others will agree to our requests. Otherwise, they will not hand over their source worlds. It's useless. Starlight frowned. Even if a destruction fruit is given, Shoju will not keep his promise. In the future I foresee, once Shoju gets the destruction fruit, the Ice Peak ancestor will intentionally fall out with Shoju. The Ice Peak ancestor will lead some undying and undying to join forces with the infinite snake ancestor, and Shoju will use the opportunity to demand a second destruction fruit. Yuan nodded. He also knew that Shoju's nature was solitary and selfish, caring about no one except the Ice Peak ancestor, and could even make a direct move against the cultivator camp. Brother Yuan, the results of your private negotiations are already good. Starlight smiled. Excluding the 3 thieves of wind and thunder sea, you reached agreements with 4 of the 9 undying and undying. This will cause a division in the Ice Peak camp regarding this matter, limiting their power to act against us. The innate primordial camp should also only oppose us with limited power. The Ice Peak camp will also have only partial opposition. Starlight's eyes were cold. Ultimately, we still have to rely on slaughter. Especially those who haven't reached undying and undying. If they dare interfere in this matter, they must be killed if possible. Only slaughter can weaken the resistance enough, Starlight said. Once their strength is insufficient, the infinite snake ancestor, the Ice Peak ancestor, they will have to endure. Luo Feng and the others all nodded. Suddenly, 8 lords, you need not come. A thought descended upon this time-space. We already know your intentions, but this matter requires a thorough discussion internally. We will reply to you in 1 era's time. The 8 lords were stunned. All right, Yuan nodded, then we'll wait for your response. Is it also 1 era like the innate primordial camp? Naijiu slightly frowned. We'll wait first. Starlight said, during this era, we also need to be wary of them joining forces. On the contrary, I hope that in this era, they can join forces. Lord Mo Man's eyes were cold. Whether it's the innate primordial camp or the Ice Peak camp, there are opposition forces. these opposition forces, if not dealt with in a strategic slaughter. In the long years to come, they will oppose us time and time again, Lord Mo-Man said. If we can achieve total domination in one battle and completely crush their opposing thoughts, it would actually be a good thing. Luo Feng, Yuan, and the other lords all nodded. To completely command all source worlds in the endless primordial space means there will be many opposition forces. These opposition forces will not receive any mercy from Luo Feng and his group, who will unleash their full might in slaughter. There is more than a 70% chance they will act within one era, Starlight said. We're getting close to ultimate victory, Yuan laughed heartily. Since the day he became a lord, Yuan has always wanted to protect more and more source worlds. In countless source worlds, he has left his footprints and opportunities. And now, he is getting closer and closer to substantially commanding all source worlds. How can Yuan not be passionate? ssnofire.net. We've been allied with the Ice Peak camp for long years too, Jin, the second-born lord, sneered, but what was the result? The Ice Peak ancestor does not remember old friendships at all. He won't give us the source worlds. In my opinion, in this strategic slaughter, the Ice Peak ancestor might stand on the opposite side. Yuan's eyes were also cold. We are about to achieve ultimate victory, and at this time anyone who stands against us cannot be spared at all. Luo Feng also nodded. Those who oppose us now, send them on their way. The 8 lords were filled with murderous intent. Anyone who obstructs the cultivator camp shall be spared no mercy. **************. The majestic hall. The infinite snake ancestor coiled here, its eyes dark and cold. In terms of strength, my innate primordial camp is not inferior to the cultivator camp. However, the 8 lords are undying and undying, the infinite snake ancestor pondered. Even if they are defeated, they can quickly recover their strength and attack again. This is also the reason that the giant god emperor and dozens of ancestors agreed to the cultivator camp's promise of never expanding. Because in prolonged battles, losing another 20 to 30 ancestors is a normal matter. Those ordinary ancestors with weak survival abilities are unwilling to participate in the battle. Our innate primordial camp is divided internally, and the Ice Peak camp is also divided. The infinite snake ancestor was well aware of the situation there. The ancestors of the 2 major camps have been friends from a long time ago, and exchanging information is a common practice. Like the 3 emperors of Wind and Thunder Sea, they have a good relationship with the infinite snake ancestor in private and reveal many secrets. The 2 camps are divided over the demands of the 8 lords because the 8 lords are extremely powerful and undying. The infinite snake ancestor was very troubled. Infinite snake ancestor. A cold voice sounded. The infinite snake ancestor looked over. An intangible force condensed into a grey-robed figure, seemingly illusory yet real, its smile cold. Mogus, the infinite snake ancestor, recognized the visitor, who was ranked in the top 10 of the endless primordial space in strength, also mastering the highest level of soul power. In soul aspects, Mogus was acknowledged as the highest achiever. Before the Starlight Lord was born, Mogus acted at whim and no one could threaten it. I heard, the grey-robed figure smiled. The 8 lords of the cultivator camp are extremely arrogant, negotiating with all forces simultaneously, wanting to command all source worlds. Indeed, the infinite snake ancestor said to the grey-robed figure, once they fully command, any of your devouring of source worlds would provoke their pursuit. The grey-robed figure's aura grew colder. It had no desire to participate in other struggles, but its path required devouring countless souls. Compared to the souls of innate primordial life, the number of souls in source worlds was billions of times greater, which Mogus valued most. In the entire endless primordial space, I once could enjoy my food endlessly, Mogus coldly said, but the cultivator camp targeted me repeatedly, with Starlight Lord especially restraining me. So, infinite snake ancestor, you should understand that the cultivator camp is my mortal enemy. The infinite snake ancestor listened. 8 lords undying, you can't solve them, Mogus smiled slightly, but I have a way. You have a way? The infinite snake ancestor scoffed. It did not believe. In terms of souls, I am number 1 in the endless primordial space, Mogus said. The infinite snake ancestor admitted this. Mogus's highest-level soul power was indeed terrifying. Facing it, an undying existence could only exert 30 to 40% of their strength at best. Some weaker ancestors might even be dazed, only able to protect their life core with no power to resist. It was truly terrifying. Relying solely on soul techniques, it could fight into the top 10 of the endless primordial space. "You've fought with the cultivator camp many times," the infinite snake ancestor said. "You can't do anything to them. As for the newly rising Luophone, in the previous camp battle we attempted, Luophone's spiritual will was extremely powerful." "I know," Mogus smiled and nodded. "Relying on my strength alone is not enough. Therefore, I need helpers. I need the Silent Extinction Ancestor, Thousand Eyes Ancestor, Star Luo Ancestor, Myriad Touch Dragon Mother, Nightmare Ancestor, and Dream Weaver to assist me," Mogus said, looking at the endless primordial space. "In terms of souls, they rank just below me. Working together, we can weave an unprecedented illusory realm." "An unprecedented illusory realm?" The infinite snake ancestor was somewhat skeptical. "An illusory realm? Would it be effective?" "The ultimate of the soul path is more terrifying than you think." Mogus was quite disdainful, for it played with souls and did not esteem other ancestors highly. "The cultivator camp has targeted me repeatedly. I have studied their spiritual weaknesses for endless years. This illusory realm can give them a huge surprise." "Who are you targeting with the illusory realm?" the infinite snake ancestor asked. "Yuan." Mogus said, "I am very familiar with Yuan, for he has cultivated for endless years and has put immeasurable effort into the cultivator camp. The more effort he puts in, the more he cares about countless source worlds. The more serious he becomes, the better the effect of this unprecedented illusory realm will be. Once it succeeds, Yuan will be trapped in his spirit, and he won't even be able to participate in the battle." Mogus said, "Even if he can participate with difficulty, he might only exert 1 or 2/10 of his strength." In the domain it excelled most, Mogus had utmost confidence. It has been hunted too many times by the cultivator camp, and it hates the cultivator camp deeply. "Even if I barely join the battle, can I only exert 1 or 2% of my strength?" The infinite snake ancestor was somewhat excited. "Confined within the mind, how long can it affect him?" "Possibly forever," Mogus said confidently. The infinite snake ancestor was overjoyed. "The formation of Yuan greatly enhances the overall strength of the 8 lords. Once Yuan is incapacitated, the deterrence of the remaining 7 lords will rapidly decline." "Are 6 helpers enough?" "There are some ancestors skilled in mind techniques. Wouldn't inviting a few more enhance our grasp?" the infinite snake ancestor suggested. "Those worthless ones aren't needed," Mogus said disdainfully. "These 6 helpers are scattered across the innate primordial camp, Ice Peak camp, and smaller factions," Mogus said. "How to invite them will depend on you. Leave it to me." The infinite snake ancestor was quite confident. 3 of them belong to his own camp. As for the Myriad Touch Dragon Mother, Nightmare Ancestor, and Dream Weaver, he is confident he can persuade them. "I also need you to provide enough life for me to restore my strength," Mogus said. "To fully recover, how much life do you need?" the infinite snake ancestor asked. "Not much, just the souls of 10,000 world-level primordial life, or 1 trillion high-level primordial life," Mogus grinned. The infinite snake ancestor also found it quite troublesome. World-level primordial life is the core of the clans, protected by ancestors. Even as one of the 9 emperors, he can't capture world-level primordial life so easily. High-level primordial life is indeed abundant, but the number 1 trillion still puts a lot of pressure on the infinite snake ancestor. "I'll find a way," the infinite snake ancestor didn't agree readily. "Once prepared, place these lives in the infinite world," Mogus said. "Starlight has always been chasing me, but he doesn't dare enter the infinite world." "All right," the infinite great serpent responded. The Ice Peak ancestor stood on the vast land, an endless cold aura spread, covering the ground in ice. He stood alone, unable to quell his anger. "Pu Cheng, time and again opposing me. This time, 16 ancestors actually oppose." The Ice Peak ancestor was furious. Internal voting within the Ice Peak camp. Pu Cheng, leading 4 undying and undying beings and 12 ordinary ancestors, were unwilling to stand against the cultivator camp. Xiao Wei as well, whose biases repeatedly favor the cultivator camp. The Ice Peak ancestor was enraged. He already disliked the rise of the cultivator camp. This time Shoju decided to suppress the cultivator camp. The Ice Peak ancestor wanted to command the camp's strength and ally with the innate primordial camp to secure an absolute advantage. Alas, 12 ancestors stood on his opposing side. Ice Peak. A thought descended, transforming into a large serpent. Looking at your situation, it seems your Ice Peak camp doesn't fully listen to you either. You know better than me, the Ice Peak ancestor coldly retorted. I have good news from Mogus, the infinite snake ancestor said, and immediately divulged all the detailed information. Oh. The Ice Peak ancestor's eyes brightened after hearing, if we can truly confine Yuan within the mind, the remaining 7 lords on the cultivator side, their deterrence will weaken greatly. Without Yuan, the lords would be a disarray, their overall strength reduced to 1/3 or even a quarter of what it was before. The Nightmare Ancestor is from your Ice Peak camp, you're responsible for inviting him. As for the Myriad Touch Dragon Mother and the Dream Weaver, I'll do the inviting, the Infinite Snake Ancestor stated, boasting superior networking skills compared to the Ice Peak Ancestor. The Ice Peak camp has a total of 38 ancestors, while the innate primordial camp has over 120. The gap in their ability to recruit ancestors is evident. All right, the Ice Peak ancestor agreed. There's a big problem now, the Infinite Snake ancestor said. Mogus has been hunted by Starlight for too long, and its strength is now very weak. It needs to devour countless souls to recover its strength. It stated it requires 10,000 world-level primordial life or 1 trillion innate primordial life. That's too many. The Ice Peak ancestor's expression changed upon hearing, capturing 10,000 world-level primordial life is certainly impossible, numerous ancestors would be furious. Luo Feng, who previously raided, had at least a justification. Upon devouring Source World Origin, Luo Feng would raid, and even then, all parties needed to talk to Luo Feng. Only due to Luo Feng's deterrence did those ancestors begrudgingly tolerate it. If one of their 9 emperors, their own leader, Ice Peak ancestor, were to massively capture world-level primordial life, it would cause internal division within the camp. 10,000 world-level primordial kind is definitely not feasible. Every death of a world level points to ancestors' attention. We should try to gather 1 trillion high-level primordial life, the Ice Peak ancestor said. Judging by the numbers within our 2 camps' clans, you handle 700 billion high-level primordial life, and I'll take care of 300 billion high-level primordial life. The Infinite Snake ancestor didn't argue further. Both parties were sincere in cooperation and naturally would strive to achieve. All right. The Infinite Snake ancestor nodded. 700 billion high-level primordial life, such a task must be done quietly. The Infinite Great Snake Clan can appear silently in any region of endless primordial space, figuring out ways to keep it discreet. The opposing forces from both camps are quickly preparing. Some ancestors from weaker factions unwilling to join the battle, such as the Myriad Touch Dragon Mother and Dream Weaver, had previously negotiated with the cultivator camp. Now, faced with threats and enormous resource temptations, they all violate their agreements with the cultivator camp and bring their clans to join the innate primordial camp, preparing to participate in this battle. Simultaneously, over 1 trillion high-level primordial life were captured from various places and ultimately delivered to the infinite world. Mogus is quietly devouring countless souls, rapidly restoring its strength. This video will end here.